this is James, and in this video, I'm going to be doing a reading for the Piscean Collective as well as a lightning round where I'm pulling a card for every other sign. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this very special video. So before we get to the cards, I just want to share the inspiration that led up to the creation of this video. So I'm filming this on March the 5th, 2021, and I was led and inspired because I'm in a space where I'm having a birthday in a couple of days. So my birthday is March the 7th, so happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me. So I thought I would do a reading for my birthday, right? Just as in the previous video, I had acknowledged another viewer and her birthday, right? So she wanted to do a reading for the collective. So I thought, well, if I could do it for her and her birthday, why can't I do it for mine? And so I widened that out. And so this video is going to be, because I'm Pisces, that's my sun sign, I wanted to do it for the Piscean Collective, right? So it's not just for me, but for every Piscean who is celebrating his or her birthday at this time, right? So that was the first part. And then I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, well, what does that do for the people who are not Pisceans, right? Where does that leave them? So right after I put that question out there, I was led and inspired to offer a lightning round. That's what it's called. And I pulled one card from the deck that's for every sun sign, you know, going from Aries to Pisces, right? So we're starting with Piscean energy and the Piscean Collective, and we're going to end with the Piscean Collective, right? But I didn't want to leave anybody else out. So that is the intention and the inspiration for this video. So I will share that as a Piscean, and other Pisceans may be able to connect or relate to this. So being a water sign, I get a lot of divine inspiration when I have my hands in water. So one of the ways that I get inspiration is I'm washing dishes and I have my hands in the water, because I still to this day like to wash dishes by hand. Okay, so that's usually one way. But the other way, which is more prevalent, which means it happens more often, is I'm in the shower and you always at the point where I'm washing my hair. So I get a lot of ideas when I'm washing my hair, which is very interesting because the hair symbolically represents thoughts, right? And what better way to get a new thought or a new idea than when you're washing your hair, right? Because you're cleansing out maybe old thoughts, negative thoughts. It's just coming to me. I never really thought about this till just now. But you're washing out negative thoughts, outdated thoughts, thoughts that you no longer need, and you're creating the space in your head, your crown chakra, and my crown chakra is tingling as I'm saying that, for new ideas to come. So now I have a new way of looking at that. I'm glad I took this moment to talk about that on camera, because now I have it for all posterity, right? So there is that. But that's how I got this idea for the video. I was in the shower washing my hair. So, and with that, another message is that it's about taking action on the inspirations that you are given, right? So I'm taking action on the inspiration, I should say, that I was given from Spirit and my angels, right? So now this nice way, I said Spirit and the angels, to talk about the deck that I'm going to be working with. There's another celebration I have besides my birthday this same week. So my birthday is March the 7th, which is on a Sunday. And in the course of that week, I'm going to hit March the 11th. March the 11th is the day that I was inspired to create my very first Oracle deck. It's been a year already. And that is the Oracle of Himm. So that is the deck that I'm going to be using because I want to commemorate the anniversary of its inception or its creation, right? And I was inspired on that day. So that is the deck I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using the Oracle of Himm. And here's the thing. It's not the very first version, because I posted that. I posted a video about that. So it's not that version. Over the course of time, I was led and inspired to create an Oracle-sized version of the cards. So you're going to be seeing the Oracle-sized version of this deck, and I'm just so excited. So that is going to be the deck. So now that I've set things up, let's get to the table and start things off with that reading for the Piscean Collective. And here we are with the cards on the table, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the deck. And as I shuffle, I'm focusing on my intention for this reading, and that is for the information, for the insights, for the guidance and advice that is going to be most helpful and beneficial for the Piscean Collective to come through the cards. So I'm shuffling that intention into the cards. And I'm feeling that's good, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. And even though this particular reading was inspired by the fact that my birthday is upcoming, I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards away from me because other people are going to be involved. And I'm talking about the Piscean Collective. I'm just one part of the collective. So now I'm going to go ahead and fan the cards out. And I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention, because I'm going to be working with a particular line of 5 reading that I use for Oracle cards. It's card 3. I'm looking for the 4th card and the 5th and final card, which I see over here. So I have the 5 cards selected. Now I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and I'm going to move that to one side. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and line the cards up in the order that they were selected. So that was card 5. Here we have 4, 3, 2, and the first card. So I'm just taking a moment to look and see if the cards are somewhat straight. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the card on the far left, opening the line up. And for me, when I work with Oracle cards, I tend to look at this card as the situation or the origin card. So this card usually tells me either something of a general event that is starting off or opening up or unfolding, or why the question, if a particular question is being asked, why are we asking that question? What's the reasoning behind the question being asked? Okay, so the card is the Tree of Life. And I had a feeling that this card was going to show up as I was shuffling the cards and laying this particular line out. So since I had a feeling the card was going to show up, I'm going to talk about it, what was coming to my mind in reference to this card. So for me, since this is a personal deck, the Tree of Life, of course, is a nod to Kabbalah. And so if you are not a student of Kabbalah or Kabbalah, then this card is talking about any metaphysical or esoteric branch of whatever path that you are currently on or tradition you are currently studying. That there may be a more deeper exploration of that, or a more the word, I guess, that's coming to me is more occult, and occult just means hidden knowledge, you know, more of an extension of that, more of the metaphysical. So there may be more looking at the bigger picture beyond what it is that you are currently experiencing. But as the thought was coming to me about this card is a journey card for me, because I tend to look at the pathways that are connecting the spheres of the Tree of Life. So it could just be, this is about, for the Piscean Collective, if you are not exploring more metaphysical, esoteric things, or the occult, just generally speaking, because that tends to be a very Piscean thing, right? So if you're not doing that, then this is maybe taking a look at your overall journey in life and maybe branching out, so to speak. How can you branch out from where you are now? But it could also be like taking a deeper journey or more internal exploration of life, or seeing how you can apply more of your spirituality to your current 3D everyday world. Because I'm seeing as I'm looking at this card, I'm seeing from Tarot, I'm seeing the Ten of Pentacles, and I'm talking about specifically the Rider-Waite-Smith version, which has the Pentacles forming a tree of life as an overlay on top of the scene with the family of many generations, right? So for me, that's a symbolic thing about taking your spirituality and overlaying it on top of your everyday 3D real world experience, right? So there's a couple of ways of looking at that. Generally speaking, I would say this is about taking a more deeper or higher perspective or expansive view of your journey in life, right? But also, how can you practically apply what it is that you are exploring, spiritually speaking, especially if it's a metaphysical or esoteric topic. Again, since this deck is based on my own personal experience and it was designed for me to use for myself, I come from a perspective when it comes to spirituality. While I appreciate the profoundly metaphysical and esoteric aspects of it, I also come back to the idea like, how can I practically put that into work in my life in a way that um, I see the proof of it, right? For me, it's about like the practical application of spirituality in my life so I can see it work, right? So that's what I'm saying with the Tree of Life. For me, it's all about branching out, exploring something more deeply in terms of the metaphysical, but also how can you practically apply that in your journey through life. Now, the other thing I will say, because this is an angel deck for me, this could also be for some people, you are moving into studying the 72 angels that are associated with Kabbalah. So that could be like you are branching out, moving from maybe the more traditional or what's considered the more mainstream or conventional aspect of angelology, and you're moving more into the metaphysical, esoteric, and occult, and that would be the 72 angels of Kabbalah, right? So I'm seeing that with the Tree of Life. So that is the opening situation. Okay, so then the next card is talking about what our expectations are. So let's take a look at that. Ooh. And so I love that I just riffed on angels here because here we have the angel card, right? So for me, and the reasoning for the design is because the first angelic encounter I had with angels came through a dream. And as I'm talking about this, my head is tingling. So that is my nod that I can feel the presence of my angels around me. So they are loving the fact that I am recounting this particular experience. So when I first had this experience, which was in dream time, the angels came to me and they were beams of light and they were all different colors. So that is a nod to the different colors and orbs of light on the background of the card. And so now the number 444 is a well-known angel number, and it just represents that the angels are near you and around you, right? So for me, this would be the expectation is about um, feeling the presence of my angels more, or being aware of the presence of my angels more, or that I'm going to be delving into forming a stronger bond or connection with my angels, because the number 4 is also a number for me that represents formation, right? That's a play on the number 4, formation. So it could be about forming a stronger bond or connection to my angels. So I'm just going to put that out there, since I'm reading for the collective, is that there may be other people in the Piscean Collective who are wanting to explore more with the angels. But I loved how it came as a follow-up to my last thought with the Tree of Life card, right? So the 444 would just be a reference to paying attention to how your angels are communicating to you, because angel numbers, which this is an angel number, it's a numerical pattern that repeats. So it wouldn't just be 444. Your angels can use any numerical, pattern that repeats that gets your attention. So it could be 111, 222, 333, 777, 1111. You know, it could also be a number like 1212. Any numerical pattern that you see that repeats or has some significance to you, right? And when they show up, And I will say this before I talk about when they show up. And for some people, it may be that you are more drawn to numerical patterns because you are very left brain. When I started noticing numerical patterns is because I had a background in a very analytical background. I was a bookkeeper, so I was always working with numbers. And then the first metaphysical science I got into was numerology, which is all about the science of numbers and their energetic vibrations, right? Things like that. So it was just a natural thing for me to be drawn to numerical patterns because I had that in my background. But I was also very left brain at that time in my life. So it may be that you're noticing numerical patterns because you may be very analytical or very left brain, right? And that's the spirit and the angel's way of getting your attention. Okay, so now when you notice the patterns, it's about paying attention to what's going on in your mind, especially the moment that you're aware of the pattern or that you're seeing the numerical sequence. When it gets your attention, you have to step back and ask yourself, what was the last thing running through my mind? If it was a positive train of thought you were on, then Spirit and the angels are validating that for you. They are emphasizing that for you. If you are on a negative train of thought, then what that numerical pattern does is it interrupts and breaks that negative pattern of thought, right? So that's a spirit's way or the angel's way of breaking that pattern or cycle or that train of thought. Okay, so that is my personal belief about why we may be experiencing numerical patterns. Now, it could also be that you are just being asked to pay more attention to other ways that the angels communicate with you. So it may not just necessarily be through numerical patterns. It could be you are aware of feathers, and especially feathers when they show up in places where you wouldn't normally find a feather, right? It could be that you notice coins or music or any kind of way that the angels will use to get your attention, but it would be something unique and specific to you, right? So that's what I'm seeing with the angels card. It's just being more aware of the presence of your angels and how they communicate to you and with you. Okay, so that's what I would say about the angels card. So now moving to the next card. So for me in this 5 card line, excuse me, the third card is talking about a hidden influence. So a hidden influence just represents an influence that we are not entirely aware of, that we are maybe unconscious of. But in other reading traditions, and I'm talking about when I work with other systems, this can also be the heart of the matter or the card that hinges, and when I say hinges, connects everything else. So let's take a look at this card now. And here we have, I love this card. Okay, so this is the dolphin card, and you can clearly see that the image on the card has me, and I'm with a dolphin. So a couple of things about this. So the dolphin card is actually the very first card I made in this deck, so it has personal sentimentality to it because it was the very first card that I made. And the dolphin card comes up to suggest, like, this could be the spirit animal. So there's something about working with the spirit world more deeply, right? So it's not just angels, but it could be your spirit animal. So for me, the dolphin is like a spirit animal because I've always had an affinity for dolphins. I've always loved dolphins, even as a young child, And so this particular image is one from my own personal collection, and it is when I went to Mexico, Cozumel, Mexico, and there's a dolphin aquarium in Cozumel, and I was able to have an experience in their dolphin aquarium. So here in the image, I am doing what's known as the dolphin hug, and the way it goes is that you put one hand underneath the dolphin, and then you take your second hand and you put it near the dolphin's blowhole, and so the dolphin knows that you are wanting to connect and hug it. It's called the dolphin hug technique, right? So it could just be a matter of, what do you need to embrace in your life? And I'm talking metaphorically, right? If we're talking about your journey through life, the first card, I don't want to leave out aspects of what I talked about with the previous cards. But if we're talking about our journey through life, it's what are you embracing in your life at this point? It's a great question for all of us to consider as we are celebrating our birthdays, right? Remember now, the impetus for this reading for me was I'm having a birthday, right? So for me, it could be like the Dolphin card is asking me, what is it that I would be willing to embrace in my life at this point? Now, it's interesting that the circumstance with the image is that it was based on a trip on a cruise, right? So I could talk about this could be in connection to travel. So there may be a trip, but I'm going to go again more with the metaphorical, like a cruise could be symbolic of your journey through life, because I'm seeing in my head the ship card from Lenormand, right? And one of its meanings could be one's spiritual journey or one's life journey, right? Because the boat is traveling over water, and that is what water symbolizes for me, right? Yeah, and so as I'm looking at the image, I'm in water, right? Me and the dolphin are in water, so that maybe is again a reference to either my emotional life or my spiritual life. So it would be again this nice thing, and water as an element is the element that's attributed to Pisceans as a whole. Right? You can't make this kind of stuff up. This is great, right? So it's about maybe taking a deeper dive, or again, a deeper exploration of our spiritual side. And it may be through that we become more aware of our spirituality through our emotional experiences, right? Our emotional reactions and responses to life, right? If we go with the idea that water also symbolizes life. Okay, so the metaphorical question for your consideration is, what is it that you are either considering or willing to embrace at your life at this point, right? And dolphins, for me, represent our intelligence. So here we have a reference to our mind and our hearts. So it's about how can you balance between your intellect and your intuition, right? Your mind and your heart, your thinking and your feelings, right? Because there's a man here on the card. I'm the man, and so this could be a matter of the man symbolizing the mind and the intellect, right? So it could be about how can you balance the two, right? That kind of thing. I'm taking a step back and saying, what else do I want to say about this card? Right, so talking about spirit animals, so it could just be a matter of pay attention to the animals that you come in contact with, or that you are willing to take a deeper exploration into spirit animals and animal medicine, animal guides, animal totems, things of that nature, right? But again, it would be about what would you be willing to embrace in your life going forward. Is there a particular technique? Remember, this was called the dolphin hug technique. Is there a particular technique that you could put into practice that would help you with that, right? And then the other thing I will say is that for me, when I designed this card, it also can represent, the idea of having a lifelong dream or a long held wish coming true or coming to pass or being fulfilled. Because I always have had a dream of playing with the dolphins or swimming with the dolphins. And at this moment in my life, that was when that dream and that wish came to fruition. So there could be a long held dream or a wish that you have, and it would be about what are you willing to do to bring that wish to fruition or that dream into reality, right? So a couple of other things I want to say about the card is there's a reference to tattoos here. So I have a tattoo of the Om symbol at the top here. So that's the Om symbol. So the Om symbol is the sound or vibration of creation, right? So it's a reminder that as spiritual beings having a human experience, we are very powerful, creative beings, right? And we create based on our thoughts, the man, and our feelings, the water, right? So we create based on thoughts and feelings. So it could just be a matter of taking a step back and asking yourself, what am I creating, or what have I created in my life? And do I want to recreate something in my life, right? And it's just being more aware or being more mindful of thought energy and feeling energy, right? And then the tattoo below it is a kanji, Japanese kanji for my middle name, which is Himm, Himm, and it translates in Japanese to strength and upper level. So it could be about applying strength, or that other people are going to bear witness to your strength in some way, like how strong you are, your strength of character, right? especially in life. You know, how have you displayed or demonstrated your strength of character as you have moved through life up to this point? Or do you need to be applying strength, and that would also be confidence in your life going forward? If we go back to the first card, and this is talking about your journey through life, right? Maybe it's a sign that you are being encouraged to be a more a strong or stronger or more confident person going forward, right? It could also be taking a look at the experiences that have left their mark on you, because this is a tattoo. Now, I chose those tattoos, so they have personal significance to me. But tattoos, just generally speaking or symbolically speaking, represent something has left a mark, or something has left an indelible impression on your life. So it may be a matter of you taking the time to consider what has left its mark on you, and do you want that to still be true for you? Right? What power does that have for you? Right, so that is what I would offer with the dolphin card. So now I'm going to take a step and take a look at the cards on the other side of that. Starting with this card next to it, we have Archangel Sandalphon. Okay, so here we have a lot of references to angelic energy, of course, and that would make sense because to some degree this is an angel deck, right? But for me, I've created a few Archangel cards in the deck, and so when they show up, they're like the major arcana cards when I read tarot, so they carry more weight in a reading when they appear, right? So here we have a higher vibrational frequency, right? I talked about angels here, which is one hierarchy in the study of angels, and then we have archangels, which is like one step above that, right? So Archangel Sandalphon, the card anyway, the image, has sheet music on it, and I was very intentional when I designed the Archangel cards because I didn't want them to be depicted a certain way, right? Because I've never, I shouldn't say never, but I've never seen an archangel, and the only one that I have seen was Metatron, and I had a dream about Metatron, but when I woke up I couldn't remember what Metatron looked like. So when I designed the Archangel cards, I wanted them to be more reflective in terms of imagery about their specialty. So one of Sandalphon's specialties is music, right? So it's very interesting when I talked over here earlier with the angels card, I talked about paying attention to how your angels communicate to you or with you, and I used music as one possibility. So it's very interesting to see the music here. Okay, so this position in the layout, which I didn't talk about yet, is usually guidance or advice, right? So if I go with the music as being the symbol here, then this card is about, you know, being more in tune or more in harmony with your life, right? Paying attention. So, you know, if I go with the music analogy, so it could be things like, you know, we're at a certain rhythm in our lives, or, you know, we're exploring the rhythm of our lives, you know, we're taking a look at that and we're wanting to be more in tune with that. Now, that could be, again, the more spiritual aspects of that. How can we be more in tune with our angels, our guides, our spirit animals, the spirit world, just generally speaking? How can we be more in tune with that? But it could also be like if we're bringing this back to the 3D and making it really tangible and practical, it's just how can we be more in tune with our lives? You know, how can we be more in tune or more harmonious, again with the music? How could we be more harmonious with other people in our lives, right? That is one aspect of the Archangel Sandalphon card. Another thing, since it's in the position of guidance or advice, this could be about faith. How can we either keep the faith, hold on to our faith? How can we be more faithful, whether it's to ourselves and the promises and commitments that we make to ourselves? How could we be more faithful to the promises and commitments that we make to other people? You know, that kind of thing. How can we demonstrate more faith? So that could be, you know, in that sense, but it could also be in the spiritual sense about your particular faith, right? And exploring more of that. You know, but again, so Archangel Sandalphon is the angel of faith. Now, Archangel Sandalphon is also an intercessor angel. And what I mean by that is that Archangel Sandalphon is known for hearing our prayers and our petitions to Spirit, and taking those prayers and petitions up to Spirit, and then bringing the answers that Spirit has for us back down to us, right? So it could just be a matter of you're being either guided or advised to um, consider the prayers and petitions that you are bringing to Spirit, right? So that could be that you are doing that for yourself, or that you could be serving as an intercessor or an intermediary for someone else. And what I mean by that is that you could be praying or petitioning for someone else that's connected to you, right? And you're bringing those petitions and prayers to Spirit, right, on that person's behalf, right? But here's the thing: whether you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for other people, right? I said about creating harmony in our relationships, right, with other people. Whether you're doing it for yourself or for other people, it's a matter again of once you release, and this is the key thing. Once you release the prayer and petition, then you have to create the space to be open and receptive to the messages or the answers to those prayers and petitions. And so that is a nice way to come back to the angels card, right? And the message that I offered with that. And as I'm looking at this layout, they are mirroring each other, right? And that, again, that's a reading technique from other traditions that I've modified in my own reading practice overall, right? So these cards are mirroring each other, right? So they're saying the same thing in different ways, right? And again, with the idea of, paying attention to signs, right? The numerical patterns or some other signs, you could look at those as the ways that the universe is divinely orchestrating certain events in your life. How do you see your life as being divinely orchestrated, right? Or it could be like, how can you orchestrate your life going forward? If we go with the idea that the music is this symbol here, I'm seeing in my mind like a conductor, right? So at this point, it's like you are the conductor in your own life experience. And so what would you like to create, or how can you create more harmony in your life with the understanding that you are the conductor, right? Because the conductor leads the orchestra, right? So it's about how can you take that power that you have within you and use it to create more harmony in your everyday life experience, right? So that's what I'm seeing with the Archangel Sandalphon card. So the only other thing I would say is that the other thing that could happen here is that you may be exploring more having to do with clairaudience, right? Because music is heard, right? So for some people, it may be a matter of you are being asked and encouraged to sharpen your gift of clairaudience, which is hearing, right? So as I'm saying that, if that is too woo-woo for you and you're saying like, I don't get that or I don't resonate with that, then it could be, how can you give more time, energy, and intention into the art, music being an art, into the art of listening, right? So it's about listening to Spirit, listening to your angels and the messages they have for you, the inspiration, the guidance, right? But also too, how can you take the time to listen to people around you, right? It may be a matter of that you are being asked to give people the gift of your listening ear, right? So that is the last thing I want to say about the Archangel Sandalphon card. Okay, so now moving on to the last card and rounding this reading for the Piscean Collective up, we have, okay, so when I usually get this card in the line that in this reading that I'm doing, this is usually the outcome, and this would be the most likely outcome. So here we have cut the cords. This is a nod to Archangel Michael. So when the cut the cords card comes up, it represents that we are moving towards cutting out, eliminating what is no longer serving and supporting us in our lives, right? So we started with the journey of life, with the tree of life, branching out, taking a deeper dive or a higher up perspective on our lives, right? And we move through getting to the other end where we realize maybe it's time to cut things out. It may be things, it may be people, it may be conditions, it may be circumstances. What do we need to eliminate? What do we need to remove? What do we need to detach ourselves from, right? It may be, if I go with the card that came before it, you may be given guidance that leads to the elimination of something that maybe was true for you, but is no longer true for you. You know, so the cut the cords is a process or a technique. I'm coming back to the dolphin, right? Being about a technique, right? It's a process or technique where you invoke, and when I say invoke, you call in the energy of Archangel Michael, and you ask Archangel Michael to cut the cords of either fear or worry or whatever the negative, quote unquote, or challenging emotional experience or mental experience you are having. You ask for the cords to be cut to that so that you can have peace of mind. That's what I usually do when I cut the cords. So I invite Archangel Michael to come in, and I say, Archangel Michael, please cut the cords of fear and worry that I have around whatever the situation is so that I can have peace. And then I sit there for a moment, and my head is tingling as I'm saying this. So Archangel Michael is present and aware of the fact that I am offering this technique and is encouraging you, if it resonates with you, to try it. So then you sit with it and you just notice how you feel. And usually for me, I feel a wave of peace. And I say, thank you, Archangel Michael, for cutting the cords to this experience. And then I go about my business. And if I feel that sense of worry or that sense of concern coming back, I do it again, right? So that's what I offer. I think at the end, we come to a place where we are just detaching. And that could be detaching from people, right? You know, detaching from people, situations, circumstances, conditions that are no longer serving and supporting us, right? So that's what I would say would cut the cords. And so on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end the reading here, and we're going to move to the lightning round. All right, and I am back. I've taken the liberty of reorienting the camera, getting a more close-up view of the cards that are going to turn up, and this is why. We are now going to be doing a lightning round. And so what do I mean by that? I was inspired to not just do a reading for the Piscean Collective, but I was also led and guided to do a lightning round for all the other signs that are not Piscean people, right? So that's what this is going to serve. I'm going to shuffle the cards, and I'm just going to pull right from the top of the deck, starting with a card for Aries, the sun sign Aries, and then moving through the zodiac in terms of sun signs to Pisces. So Pisceans, if you're still here with me, you're going to get another card at the end of this. And I figured that was a nice way to kind of bring this full circle, because we started with Piscean energy and we're going to end with Piscean energy. Okay, so now that I've said that, that's the intention. And I'm going to start by shuffling the cards, and I'm focusing that intention into the cards, which is what I always do when I shuffle. And I should say, as I'm shuffling, I put the other cards from the previous reading back in. So it'll be very interesting to see if any of those turn up, and they will re-emphasize that particular message from possibly the previous reading and the time it showed up there. Okay, so when the cards do that, that's my cue that I'm done shuffling. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards one more time. And then I'm simply just going to put the cards back in a pile. And I was going to use this one to go on top, but I think I'm going to start there and do it like this. Because for me, when I do that, sometimes the middle pile can represent the present moment. And so this is what we are presently experiencing as a collective. Everybody who's watching this video at the time, this is that's the present moment for you, and this is the present moment for me. Yeah? Okay. So now, like I said, I'm starting with Aries. So if your sun sign is Aries, this is your card. And here we have, you can't make this stuff up. Now, see what I said about like paying attention to see if a card repeats? So here we have the Tree of Life again. So what I offered in the previous segment also applies to you. So this is about, you are at a place in your life where you are branching out. This may be a time to explore your journey through life. And I didn't say this in the previous segment, so this is new for you. So there's something about making connections, right? So this could be about connections with other people, because the bottom of the tree represents earth and the physical, right? But it could also be about making more profound spiritual connections, which is the crown of the tree at the top, right? As I'm looking at this, this is also a symbol for the body. So there's something about making connections between the spiritual and the physical, right? And so there may be something about, I'm hearing in my head something about one's body of work. So it may be something about taking an idea, the crown, and bringing it down into physical reality or manifesting something, but it has to do with work. So somebody's work or career is being highlighted here, right? So it could be about making or branching out with your work, or making connections related to your work, something of that nature, right? But so I'm seeing that, and that may be for a specific Aries person, but for the Aries collective, I'm seeing the same thing here. So this is about journey through life. So this could be either your everyday practical 3D experience. You're noticing something about the journey that you are on now, or there's something about the spiritual, the more metaphysical aspect of that, and making connections one way or the other. The other thing that I will say, and I didn't say this before, so in the background here we have the flower of life. So that's about that's a nod to me for sacred geometry. So somebody may be, in terms of either the metaphysical or the esoteric aspects of spirituality, may be looking more into sacred geometry, right? So that's what I'm going to offer with Aries. So that's Aries. So now the next card is for Taurus. And here we have the Spirit Guide card. Okay, so when the Spirit Guide card comes up, it can represent two things. Since Taurus is an earth sign, I'm going to start with the practical. So this could just be a matter of you are coming into relationship with a spiritual teacher, leader, or guide. Somebody is facilitating that process for you, or that you are a spiritual guide for other people and you're being asked to expand on that. Because I'm seeing it go one or two ways. Either you are in the position of being a spiritual teacher, leader, or guide, and you're being asked to facilitate a particular process, or becoming more aware or expanding on that. Or that you are working closely with a spiritual teacher, leader, or guide that is facilitating your own spiritual process. So that is the practical side of that. The spiritual side of that is that you are becoming more aware of the spiritual guides in your life, because that was the intention here. If you go with the image, the silhouette could represent a human or the physical, and then there's a larger silhouette behind the light, and that could represent an actual spirit guide, right? So this could be like your higher self or a spirit guide, somebody who's helping facilitate your spiritual journey, because this deck is a very spiritual deck, right? It was formed or inspired by my own spiritual aspects of my life, right? So there's that. However, the other message with this card is the light above the shoulder, right? So for me, when I was working with this deck, when I first created it, my brother at the time was experiencing something with his shoulder, right? And he was exploring chiropractic care to get that taken care of, right? So there may be an issue around the shoulder in the physical sense, like really in your body. You're experiencing something having to do with the shoulder. If it's not in the literal sense, then metaphorically, the shoulder can represent responsibility. So it's about highlighting something that you are becoming responsible for. So that could be a new responsibility, or you're becoming more aware, enlightened about a responsibility that you have. Like you're seeing it in a different light, right? So that's what I would offer to you about the Spirit Guide card. So that is for Taurus. The next sign is Gemini. This is your card. Okay. So here we have the Anael card. So for me, this card talks about honoring your intuition, right? So because Anael is a variation on the name of Archangel Haniel, and Haniel is the angel of our intuitive faculties, our psychic faculties, things like that, right? She is the angel that's associated with the moon. So as I'm talking about that, so the moon can symbolize our intuition, right? So, but it can also symbolize, moving through a phase, right? If you go with the idea that the moon moves through phases, moving through a phase. So this is a time for you to pay attention to your emotional reactions and responses to things, especially to the things that you feel triggered by, right? So this may be a matter of becoming more aware of what triggers you, and that could be in your relationships with other people, because I'm also seeing the idea that Gemini rules communication. So it could be through forms of communication in which you get triggered, right? So I'm a big believer in, honoring who you are as a person. So feel your feelings, but at some point step back, because the Gemini is a dual sign, right? It's a sign of duality, right? So, step back and ask yourself, when you have had your reaction, step back and ask yourself, why did I choose that particular emotional reaction and response in that moment, right? The gold on the card. The gold is a color for me that represents spiritual healing. So this could be a matter of, if something comes up that you are triggered by, it's coming up to get your attention, to bring you more awareness to it, so you could heal it, right? And so then the question becomes, what would I be willing to do to heal that? And would I be willing to take that first step in doing that? Right? The other thing with the Aniel card, sticking with the color gold, is there may be a golden opportunity, and I'm putting golden in quotes, there may be a golden opportunity coming your way, and you may need to think about whether or not you want to take that opportunity, right? And then the last thing, I'm seeing this, right? So there may be, for some people in the Gemini collective who are siblings, right? I'm seeing this in particular, where you are having an experience where you need to heal the idea of favoritism, right? Because sometimes I look at the Haniel card as like the golden child. So there may be something around a golden child that needs to be examined and healed, possibly for you. Especially if there's some form of sibling rivalry, like you are the one who has a sibling where you perceive them to be the golden child, or it could be the other way around, where you are perceived as a golden child and your sibling has an issue with that. So it's about, like, maybe how can we work towards healing that? And again, Gemini being about communication for me, it may be that we need to have an honest conversation about that. So that's what I'm seeing with the Aniel card, and that's for Gemini. Okay, next sign, if I'm going through my chart in my head, right, is Cancer. And so here we have the Magi card for Cancer. And so the Magi card is all about, of course, magic, right? So it's about, what is it that you could do to create more magic in your life? Or maybe you're being more aware of the magic that already exists in your life. Now, the obvious nod here could be like, you may be a magical practitioner. And if that is the case, if that resonates with you, then you're being asked to delve more deeply into your magical practice. For me, this card is about, in one regard, it's about secret societies and orders. So there may be something about an initiation, or being initiated into a particular order when it comes to your magical ability or your magical practice, right? So there is that. The other thing about the Magi card for me, it's based on cartomancy for me. And cartomancy is about the art of reading playing cards. And so in particular, if you're fluent with that, this is the Ace of Spades. So the Ace of Spades can come up when you are at a place where you have to make a decision, because the Ace of Spades for me can represent the mind. So you're at a place where you need to make a decision about either eliminating something from your life, which was kind of what we talked about in the previous segment, right? You're at a point where you need to make a decision, or it's in your mind, about eliminating something from your life, because spades is the suit about elimination, right? And or you're in the place of rebuilding your life, like, and you have to make the decision about how you want to go about that, or what would your life look like going forward. But it could be about tearing something down in your life and then rebuilding it, right? It's a card that talks about transformation, right? So the other thing I will say is I'm looking at the figure and he's cloaking himself. So for some people, it may be a matter of stepping back and, you know, cloaking yourself, quote unquote. And so it could just be about taking time and space away from your everyday, you know, and not being seen by people, you know, that kind of thing. So it's about a retreat, maybe stepping back, you know, taking time out for yourself. That's all coming to me in the moment. The other thing could be about what would you be willing to do to be more seen? Maybe you are trying to hide yourself from the world in some way. And it could just be a matter of like, what would you be willing to do to be more seen, more visible, right? It could be an act of courage. I'm looking at the coloring on the card. And so the yellow gold reminds me of the solar plexus chakra. And so that's all about the courage, having the courage and the confidence, right? To be seen. So what would you be willing to do to be seen, right? And do you need to do some healing work around being seen, being noticed, right? For me, since this is a personal deck, for me, I spent a lot of time in my younger years being very self-conscious about being seen. And I remember I'm sharing this. So one day in college, I was in a class and the teacher wrote on, or the professor wrote on one of my papers. I got an A on the paper, but he also wrote, "Stop hiding," in big red letters. And I was like, wow. Because I was always the type of student who liked to sit in the back of the room and I wouldn't have anything to say unless the teacher called on me. I was one of those kinds of students, right? Because I didn't want to be seen, right? But he made a point to say, stop hiding. I never forgot that moment, right? Of course, I didn't forget it because I'm talking about it now, right? But there may be something about this idea about the message here is for you to stop hiding. What aspect of yourself are you hiding from other people for maybe fear of criticism or fear of rejection or something of that nature? And maybe it's about you taking the first step towards no longer hiding. Okay. So that is the message that I have for Cancer. So now the next sign is, making sure I'm doing it in my head right, would be Leo. I believe I'm at Leo. Okay, so this is the Archangel Jeremiah card, excuse me. And so this card carries with it a specific message, right? Okay, so when I designed this card, I had an experience with Archangel Jeremiah during a Mercury retrograde. Okay, so I'm going with the Mercury retrograde first. So Mercury retrograde is a time where we are being encouraged or advised to pay attention to initiating new things, to signing contracts, you know, to pay attention to issues regarding communication, to issues with technology, right? So all those kinds of things may apply. So you're being given maybe the umbrella message to pay attention to those kinds of things, right? And I'm going with the idea that I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde right now because I tend not to keep up with those things. But I'm going more with the metaphorical aspects of that, right? So it's about, you know, paying attention to all those things. But the message that Archangel Jeremiah imparted to me during that retrograde was that a retrograde is a perfect time for what Archangel Jeremiah deemed as the 3 R's. So that's review, reflect, and reconsider. So what? A review is to look at something again, right? The R-E in any word represents again, right? So review is about looking at something again. So what do you need to review? It could be a matter of, you know, maybe you doing an overall life review at this time. So maybe there's something you need to assess or reassess, right? Or something that you need to evaluate or reevaluate, but it's taking another look at something, right? And it could be with the idea that space is in the image, could be like giving yourself the time and space to do that, or that it's about expansion, like taking a bigger expanded look at something, like expanding your awareness around it, right? But it's about reviewing something. What do you need to review? What would you be willing to take another look at? Maybe for another way of understanding the experience, right? So that's the review. Reflect. You know, this is a time of reflection, so how can you be maybe exploring meditation more? You know, being more in a process of contemplation, those kinds of things. And then reconsider. You know, after you do the reviewing and the reflecting, what do you need to reconsider? what needs your reconsideration? And that's just to consider again, right? And I think I hit the camera, so if I did and it jostled, I'm sorry. But I'm in the moment here. Okay, so what would you need to do? But those are the things that Archangel Jeremiah imparted to me in that Mercury retrograde meditation that I had at the time. So this is a time of review, reflect, and reconsideration. But the bigger emphasis is on, the idea of either evaluating something, reevaluating something, or assessing something, or reassessing, right? It could also be from a spiritual perspective that you are going to be reaching a milestone in your growth and development. So that's what I want to offer to you about the Archangel Jeremiah card. But this is a time of maybe giving yourself space to do something or accomplish something, or that you are expanding your awareness, and it's going to be through the act of reviewing, reflecting, and reconsidering. Okay, so that is the message there. Okay, so the sign after Leo is Virgo. I'm riffing off the top of my head here. So Virgo, this is your card. Okay, and here we have Lakshmi. Okay, so the idea here with the Lakshmi card is this is all about abundance, right? So I don't have a depiction of Lakshmi here because when I experienced the energy of Lakshmi, it came in meditation, and Lakshmi spelled her name out. And at the time, I did not know who Lakshmi was. So I had to Google it to find out. So for me, this could be a matter of, if you're not familiar with Lakshmi and you're not into Hinduism, or that's not your practice, right? Then it's a matter of you just being aware of your ability to be abundant, right? This is about abundance energy, right? So the way that we practice abundance is being aware of all that you have in your life at this point as you prepare the space or create the space to receive more, right? It's about gratitude. So how can you be grateful for what you have as you are maybe creating space to receive more in your life, right? It could also be a symbol for meditation because I have a lotus flower here. So it's about, maybe how can you form a more meditative practice, and that could just be maybe being more mindful, in your awareness, bringing more mindfulness to your everyday real world experience, or it could be a matter of, since the lotus flower is opening, it could be a matter of blooming and blossoming. Something is unfolding in your life, right? Now the color pink. Pink is representative of two things for me personally, right? So it could be a matter of unconditional love. So it's about bringing that energy of unconditional love. So how can you be more loving unconditionally to yourself as well as other people, right? And the other thing I will say, because Lakshmi is goddess energy, so we're talking about the divine feminine, that kind of thing. Pink is also a color about, the possibility of a poor bond with your mother. So it could be about healing that energy, right? So it's about how can you maybe find a way to love your mother unconditionally. And this is a big one for me because I just tapped into something there, because that is something I had to do with my own relationship with my own mother. So, and I got to the point where, because I didn't always have a great relationship with my mom, and I had to get to a place where I just had to learn to accept my mother as who she was. And so the way I did that, so if you're in that place and you're struggling with that, I want to offer how I did it. I'm not saying that this is going to work for everyone, but this worked for me. I had to get to a place where I had to separate the fact from my mother from an adult woman, right? Because I was an adult at this time. So when I looked at her as an adult woman and let go of the energy and the attachment of her being my mother, I was able to see that she was a woman who had experienced a lot of pain in her life. And as a result of the pain that she experienced, she reacted and responded to things from that place, right? And sometimes she did things that were not as loving as they could have been. But I understood from that place. Now, that is not to say that I was condoning her behavior or giving her a pass, but it helped create for me some greater sensitivity and empathy. And it was I was able to kind of release any expectations or attachments to her being who I wanted her to be, and maybe just take a greater look at who she was at that moment. And if I chose to relate to her, then that's how she was always going to be, unless she decided to change on her own. So that's a lot to say. But somebody may need to hear that, so I'm just going to offer that. But if I go back to my first impulse, this is about, tapping into the energy of abundance. So this is about taking a look at your abundance mindset, your prosperity mindset. Remember, for me as a spiritual person, thought creates experience. So when maybe this is about taking a look at your thinking, and if you are thinking about things in terms of scarcity or lack, how can you switch it? How can you reframe it so it comes from a more abundant place? And it starts with gratitude, right? So that's what I would offer. But you may be in a place where you are unfolding, you are blooming and blossoming in terms of your spiritual practice, so continue to do that. So that is what I would offer for Virgo. Okay, so after Virgo is Libra. So this is your card. Okay, and so here we have as above, so below. So I created this card to be a reflection of Metatron. If we go back to the very first card here that I drew for Aries, which is the Tree of Life. So Metatron is in the sphere at the top of the Tree of Life. And then his twin, Sandalphon, which I talked about in the previous segment, is at the sphere at the bottom of the tree, right? So they represent as above, so below, right? So, but it's also known as a spiritual principle that what we experience in the 3D world below is a reflection of spiritual law or spiritual principle, right? So it could be for this particular sign, it's about being more aware from a spiritual standpoint or spiritual principle what it is that you are manifesting in your everyday reality, right? It's about me becoming more aware of spiritual law and how that law is operating in your life, right? But it could also be about forming a more spiritual connection. You're wanting to go beyond the 3D world. But again, I just see this as the overriding, message of putting the principle of as above, so below into practice, or becoming more aware of how that works or that principle operates in your life going forward, right? So that's what I would see with this card, as above, so below. So that was for Libra. And I was about to go on. How perfect is this for Libra? Because it's about balance. It's about balance between the spiritual and the material, right? And Libras, as a sign, is all about balance because I'm seeing the scales, right? So it's about how can you create more balance between the spiritual and the material in your world. All right, I'm stepping back to see if there's anything I wanted to say because that just came in a moment. Okay, so that's what I would say about as above, so below. So now let's take a look at the sign that comes after Libra is, I want to say Scorpio. I believe it's Scorpio. Okay. This is the card for Scorpio. Okay, so here we have another repeating card. So here we have the Angels card with the number 444. So I'm just going to repeat what I said in the previous segment again. So this could be about tapping into the angelic realm more, becoming more aware of the presence of your angels, forming a deeper bond or connection with your angels, right? That kind of thing. Pay attention to numerical patterns or other signs that would let you know that your angels are present and that they are around you, right? Because the 444 is a number. Remember, that means that you are surrounded by angels and not just, a few. It's like you are surrounded by a multitude of angels, right? So again, for me, this card represents forming a deeper connection or bond with your angels and paying attention to how they communicate to you and how they are operating and present in your everyday life, right? So that is the card for Scorpio. So now we are moving to Sagittarius. Okay, and here we have the clairvoyance card. Okay, so now this card clearly can talk about the spiritual gift or ability of clairvoyance, which is second sight. So if you resonate with that, since that's its initial interpretation, if you resonate with that, then it's about cultivating that. What would you need to do to cultivate that, right? I'm seeing in my mind for some people, if there is a block or resistance to that, because you are fearful of what it is that you might quote unquote see, then you could invoke Archangel Raphael, the healing angel, and the angels of clairvoyance to remove any blocks that you have to seeing, if you want to see, but you are also fearful of what you might see, right? So there is that. The symbol of a TV can also represent programming. right? So you are being encouraged to take a look at what you may consider to be programming in your life. We are all conditioned and programmed to believe certain things, or to think certain things, or to feel certain things based on our own history and experience. So when I see the TV in that regard, it's about taking a look at your psychological makeup. You know, what makes you you? And maybe you're getting to a point where you are becoming more aware. You're starting to see the patterns. The background image is of a TV holding pattern, right? When a TV would go out, or the broadcast would go out, you know, they would put up on the screen back in the day, they would put up a holding pattern waiting to get the signal back or the programming back or whatever they need to do. They were experiencing technical difficulties, yeah? So with that in mind, it's about taking a look at our patterns. What are your patterns? What is your conditioning and programming? Right? And taking a look at that, because it may be time for a change. Right? So there is that. That is my secondary message. The other one is just to be more mindful of maybe just media in general. You know, what are you watching? What are you giving your time and attention to? And that could be media in the entertainment sense, like broadcast TV, but it could also be social media. What are you giving your time and attention to in terms of messages? And do you still need to listen to those messages? It might be time for you to turn off those particular channels, especially if you are having reactions and responses to those messages that you don't like experiencing and you don't like having. It may be time to either metaphorically change the channel or turn the TV off. And that would just be the method and the mode that the messaging is coming through. But for me, it's all about really taking a look at your programming, your internal conditioning, or that you're taking a look at the conditioning and programming that you are taking in. Your eyes are eye gates you're taking in through other distribution channels in your waking life. You still need to be paying attention to those, right? And I'm going back. I'm going to start this coming back full circle. The antenna on the TV could just be about having your antenna up, and that's again paying attention to your intuition, especially if you are a visual person, right? You know. And the other thing I will say, I thought I was done. The last thing is that the television could be a pun for tell a vision. Do you have a vision for your life? And are you feeling that you are wanting to share that vision going forward, right? And be very mindful of who you share it with. That's the other thing. We all have visions and we all have things that we want to see manifest in our lives. But it's a matter of being very selective as to who we share it with, right? Going with the TV analogy, right? The entertainment analogy. There's a certain audience for that. So being mindful of who is your audience. Who's going to support your particular vision, right? And as I'm talking about that, if you are maybe a leader or a teacher or something about that, this card may be about creating a program. And if that's the case, there may be an important need to have visual components to it, meaning like video, right? We live in a day and age of video. So it's about like, what are you willing to create in terms of your program for your audience, right? Your key demographic, playing with the TV and entertainment analogy here, right? And it's a matter of using visuals that are going to get their attention, right? So that's what I would say to you about the clairvoyance card. Okay, so I'm moving from Sagittarius now to Capricorn. Okay, so here we have the New Thought card. So when I designed this card, it's all about my experience as a New Thought metaphysician. So it could just be a matter of somebody is exploring New Thought, just generally speaking, as a spiritual thing, right? And so for me, the biggest thing that was a game changer for me in terms of that was unity. You know, so somebody may be exploring New Thought, right? So that could be the one aspect of it. It could also be about a new thought that you are having, which means that you are coming to a place of having a new way of thinking about something. You are being divinely inspired because the angel is looking up into the heavens, right? So for me, that's about being divinely inspired, or, you know, seeing the light about something, you know, and again, that's about coming to some kind of awareness. It's about enlightenment illumination awareness. You may have an aha moment, right? And it could just be, I'm looking at the angel's position here, and the angel is very relaxed, you know, kind of thing. So it could just be, it comes out of the blue where you're not doing anything in particular. Like it's maybe more of like, maybe something more mundane. I get my chief divine inspirations or realizations when I'm folding laundry, something where I don't have to think about it. So I'm folding laundry, or I'm washing dishes. As a Piscean, I have my hands in water, or I'm taking a shower and I'm washing my hair, which is actually how I got the inspiration to do this particular video. I was in the shower, washing my hair, and then the idea came, right? So it's a matter of some sort of awareness that you are having, and it leads to a new way of thinking. So it could be, again, a new concept or theory that you are giving some time and attention to. You're mulling it over, and you're having some awareness around that, or that you just have like a sudden insight, sudden flash of awareness, an aha or realization, right? And it's like seeing the light about something. So that is a new thought card. Okay, so now we are moving to Aquarius. And here we have the Chokure card. So the Chokure is a Reiki symbol. So the first thing that I would say too is this. If you are a Reiki practitioner, then if you are currently, let's say you're at level 1, you're just starting out in your Reiki practice, this could be an encouragement to think about moving to the next level, which is Reiki level 2. And that is where you learn the symbols, right? So it could be a matter of somebody in their Reiki practice is thinking about or being encouraged to move from level 1 to level 2, right? So that's the first and foremost, right, thing. But it could also be putting time and attention, putting your energy into healing something, right? And that's whether you are a Reiki practitioner or not, right? You don't have to be an energy healer or an energy worker to put your energy into healing a situation. And I'm going somewhere with that. The Chokure symbol is a power symbol. So there's something about power. And red is a power color. That is why I chose the background as red, because red is known as a power color. So there may be something about power issues that you are needing to take a look at or needing to heal, especially if you are the one who may be a bit of, and forgive me for putting it like this, but a little bit of a control freak. Being a control freak is a little bit of a power issue, right? So how can you heal that for yourself if it's gotten out of control, kind of thing? Or that you are in a position where you're becoming more aware of how you give your power away to other people, other circumstances, conditions, things in the outer, right? That you tend to give your power away. This could be a nod where you are being encouraged to take your power back, right? So this is all about reclamation of your power, right? Your personal power, right? And the only way you can do that is to be mindful and become more aware of where you are giving your power to. Where does that energy go, right? That kind of thing, right? And so the direction of this Chokure design is important because it talks about, it translates to put your power here. That's what it translates to. And it talks about put your power here. And so, you know, for me, I draw the symbol with my hands and I draw it on my hand. So it's about literally saying, or metaphorically saying, that the power is in your hands, right? So what are you going to do with the power at your disposal? And that's a food for thought question. And I'm going to end that there. So that is for Aquarius. So now we're going to finish this up, right? We started with Piscean energy and the Piscean Collective in the beginning of this video. And so now we're coming full circle and we're going to end it here. So this is a card for our Piscean. So this is a bonus card for you. And the card is, can't make this stuff up. So this is Dicomio. This is another Reiki symbol. So I'm going to say the same thing that I said for the previous sign for you Piscean people who may be Reiki practitioners. The Dicomio symbol talks about achieving some kind of mastery. It's the Reiki master symbol, right? So it's about mastery, right? So in your Reiki practice, if you are at level 2, then maybe you're being asked, encouraged to consider moving to the next level up, right? But this is about self-mastery, right? So if you're not a Reiki practitioner, then this is about putting time and energy and attention into mastery, self-mastery, right? Dicomio translates to enlightenment. So it's about, again, becoming more aware, more enlightened, that kind of thing. the background for me was intentional when I superimposed the image on it. So it represents the sky. So it represents the mind. The mind, air element is the mind, right? So it's about mental awareness. What's going on in your mental atmosphere? This may be about mastering your mind, right? Getting control of your thoughts, especially in the ones that are no longer serving and supporting, or the ones that limit and restrict you and what it is that you're trying to create in your life, right? How can you heal those negative trains of thought, those limiting and restricting thoughts, right? So Dicomio is all about mastery. So I will say this as your bonus card. Consider any of the message that you connected to and related to and that resonated with you in the beginning segment. And how can you move towards becoming more of a master, or mastering, or getting greater power, control, and authority over those challenges that maybe you resonated with in the previous segment, right? So that's what I would offer to you. And so I'm going to take a moment to just make sure that I have 12 cards here. So I have 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I did that to make sure that I actually went through all 12 signs. Okay, so there are 12 cards there. So I hit all 12 signs. So that is the lightning round. So I'm going to end the video here, and I am James Himm Mitchell, and I want to thank you for sharing this time and space with me, this atmosphere. And just let me know if you enjoyed this. I hope you got something of value out of it. I enjoyed doing it. So my end message would be this. I thought I was done, but the end message is this. I was led and inspired by Spirit and my angels to do this. So there's something to that, and I enjoyed the process so much, right? So I'm offering to you, as I wrap this up, pay attention to the inspirations that you were getting from Spirit and angels. I think that was like a continuing message throughout at certain places, right? So just pay attention to what you are inspired and led and guided to do, and then take the step to do it, right? Because it could be greater enthusiasm, a greater joy into your life, right? So I think that would be the parting message I would offer to you. So again, this is James Himm Mitchell. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me, and I look forward to sharing this space with you again in a future video. So until then, have a great day and take care.